I see you're looking at me like I looked at you, like you're about to go to sleep on me. Question, ma'am. The conference office.
Yeah, the old one. I mean, is it functional? Is it functioning or it's just sitting there?
It's had several uses. It's, it's now being used as a launching place for our literature evangelists who are working the area. We've used it for community service advantage. We've used it for a housing place for our Spanish churches. So it has had a multi-function piece. We have not decided a final use of it, but it's not just sitting there.
Thank you.
Dr. Joe Grider, pastor of Tuscaloosa, is serving as our minister director. Elder Kenneth Luckett, your former pastor, is an associate director. And Elder Dorian Milo, who runs our multicultural department, is also an associate minister director. So those three men, all three are also holding down churches. The conference is trying to be good stewards of your money. We have downsized the office so that we can be more efficient. There was a time when our tithe gain was like double digits, 10, 11%. Then we moved to a place where that kind of increase would happen over a period of years, not every year. Now with the changing of economy and times, it's less. Because of that, we're trying to be able to balance the need for clergy between full-time pastors paid full-time and lay pastors who are assisting. And we began asking departmental men to hold other pastoral responsibilities so we could share cost. Well, it's been working. It's a way that Elder Edmund was able to move us from 80 cents on the dollar going to payroll down to somewhere around 60 cents on the dollar, giving more monies allowed for ministries and assisting the churches. Yes, ma'am.
The ABC store, when I left, it was flourishing. I was gone 5 years and came back and it was closed. I never really asked why, but may I ask now?
The ABC store was a part of our mission. In order for it to function, it had to be highly subsidized. We got to a place where it was more than $300,000 that needed to be subsidized. So the conference paid off all of its debt, gave it a clean slate, and said, if this business is to survive, it needs to be able to take care of more of its expense. It could not. And so the decision was made that we had to close it so that the overall operation and the overall growth could continue. Bottom line, again, because our income doesn't grow but so much, we have to determine what's the high priority in our mission. And our highest priority is the survival of our churches and the maintenance of our pastors and teachers and staff. If we can't do both, we've had to make some adjustments so we can do certain things. Yes, ma'am. Education has always been one of the highest priorities for Adventists. I think it's needed more now than ever. Our children who come to our church are in our church services for 2 hours once a week. The young people who go to our school are there for 5 days a week, are there for 8 hours. So in terms of the ability to shape and mold young people, Adventist education. The public arena for education now has been impacted by the wider culture. And so in that culture, every worldview is being taught and mandated. If our children have some grounding in this world of chaos, a central focus of Christ, a mindset of service, then we need to maintain and strengthen our education. I never had the advantage of a Christian education because I didn't know we had church schools. Even though after I got grown and became a pastor, I found out the white church of my town had a church school 2 miles from my house. My first exposure to education was Oakwood. And Oakwood College was a transformative impact on my life. I was never the same again. I wished that I had had that experience from early education. I think every child in the Adventist church needs to be in a church school. Also, Christian education is the most awesome evangelistic tool I know outside of public evangelism. Like I was about to say before, my generation and the generation before me would put their child in church school if the church school was in the back of your church in a room where the pastor meets. Because every child taught that, in fact, we believed it. The worst church school was better than the best public school. That does not sell with my children. I've got a son who's a teacher by trade, by education, and a daughter who's a special education child. Neither one of them will put their kid in the church school because their perception of a quality education is quality facility, quality academics, quality process. And since they don't see all three, they're saying, I believe in it, but I don't see it for my child. And I don't care what you say, you can't make me feel guilty about it. So if I want my child and my grandchild to go to church school, I've got to come up. I've got to make sure F.H. Jenkins and every facility has quality teaching, quality staff, quality facilities, so that we can offer to the world and to our own parents the best of quality. Then I see people who will never come to church. They won't come to Hillcrest. But black professionals in middle class are looking for a safe place for their children. They'll come to our school. And I don't know, it might be different in Nashville than it is in other places I've pastored and moved. But I'll watch how my own members will talk about the school and teachers like a dog. And how the non-Adventists were so happy to have their kids in our church school. They were saying, I don't know where you get these teachers. They're the best thing on the planet. And when they say what the price is for our school, they say, that's all it cost? And they're tickled pink. And so we kill our own system. I get frustrated. I own a little Honda car. And if I had a flat tire, I wouldn't go to this brother and say, you know, these Hondas are terrible cars, and they've got flats and whatnot. He'd say, Pastor, isn't that your car? Yes. Don't you have a spare in your trunk? Yes. Well, Pastor, why don't you quit fussing and go fix your tire? So if our schools don't have everything we want them to have, go down in your pocket and pay for it. If you want your child to have computers or a bigger gym or more rooms or whatever, pay for it. The idea that we are poor, we're not poor anymore. God has blessed us as a black people. My father only had an 8th grade education. My mama only got a high school. I'm the first one in my generation that went out of college. My children have terminal degrees, and most of your children have done well because of your sacrifice and are living at a level much higher. And most black people I know of now are not people who are still struggling in the projects, and I grew up in the projects, so I'm not talking about me, but have been blessed. We buy everything we want. I'm seeing little kids in elementary school with cell phones. I'm saying, what you need a cell phone at 9 years old? How you got that important? Or in church with the little video things. I saw a little kid with his designer clothes on. Now, I know his mama bought that for him, but he don't care a thing about designer clothes, because as soon as he gets quick, he's going to kick his shoes off, take his clothes off, and go play naked. We don't have much time. There's a short window for us to impact our kids. It's a short window for us to reach this generation. All our money is going to burn up. We need to be engaged. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Propagate the gospel. And what is your perspective on pastoral growth for the South Central Conference?
Under Elder Edmond, we began developing an intentional curriculum for pastoral growth. One of the highest values and initiatives across North American division is continual education. We want more effective, more productive, missions-focused pastors. I will begin organizing pastors in regions so the pastors and clusters can begin working as a team. We have all of Central Tennessee, but we have all our churches locked in 2 or 3 places. As I travel around from area to area, we go large swaths of area where we have no churches and no presence. The key always has been leadership. Training leadership, challenging leadership, helping our pastors become effective. My goal is to raise the level of competence of our pastors, both professionally and spiritually. I want to move back to a biblical foundation of ministers. In the Acts piece, pastors equipped and trained leaders and moved on. Kind of efficiency of a pastor, so the pastors don't have to spend time maintaining their churches, but planting churches. And what people are telling me are this generation of pastors that we have, Pastor Jones, are excellent preachers. They handle the word well. They've been real taught in terms of theology. What we miss is pastoring. So we're trying to take this generation back to what Elder Edmond and I started with, and Elder Brown, where we were taught to touch people. Some people at the seminary used to try to tell us that people don't want you to visit them anymore. And so they began to take a business thing. I'm Pastor Jones. I'm available Monday and Thursday. And if you need me, I'll leave your number. I won't leave my number. And we'll call you back or text you. Well, that's corporate world. But preachers are available 24/7. And I still believe with black people, if you touch them, get to know them, love them, be available to them, you sell yourself first as a person of God and a caring person, and then you can sell your agenda and ideas. But if you don't do that, you don't develop a trust relationship with people, then you have problems. And what used to be for my generation, Ministry 101, is something different for the next generation. Showing up at prayer meeting, you were there. In Sabbath school, you were there. Somebody's sick, you were there. Somebody died, you were there. Touching the children, you were there. We'll have to move back to those core pieces of ministry so that we can have impact. Now, there's a lot of competition. People don't have to come to church for a good sermon anymore. My wife had cataracts, and so they removed her cataracts about a year ago. And so for about 2 weeks, Carol couldn't come out. I had to put stuff in her eye. So for 2 Sabbaths, I'm watching the internet. I start service in the East Coast watching Henry Wright. I move back to the Middle Coast and then see Hillcrest. And I end my day in the West Coast watching the guy on the left. I had great church that Saturday. I had great church in my pajamas. And with internet paying for sending out tithe, I paid my tithe. from my bedroom. So if tithe paying and church going, church watching is the essence, then I didn't really need to come. So young people in the other generation, when they show up at church, it's an intentional show up at church. So we have to develop the kind of relationship both with the pastors and the people that I'd rather be here with you than on the internet watching stuff. Yes, ma'am.
About FH Jenkins, is it in the plan to extend it to 12 years in school?
That's my intention.
Praise God. Because I know people that I've known for years who are at Madison Academy, and because they get help from that church, they have to have their membership there. So that's taking folk out of our conference. So please.
Again, this has to be an effort from all of us. The office does not generate any money. Only money we have is the money that comes up from the people. And as this area makes that a high priority, as you support your church school with your presence, with your prayers, with your finance, along with the K-12 board and the administrative staff, we can move together. We have a principal and others who are geared for excellence, and I'd like to see us go. We need to have a K-12 program in any of our, most of our major, in Birmingham and here in Memphis, because we have large populations that need Adventist education and evangelism if we market it properly. Because again, you just not can say just come. You've got to get out where the people are and let them know what kind of product you have to draw them in. Yes, ma'am.
First one, I don't know.
Well, we need to
first-
hear you down
Can
here.
you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? The first one is with the educational system here. I know that our schools do not, for some reason when I was growing up, believe that there's any need for special education. So we've never made those accommodations in our schools. Everybody is brilliant. Everybody is normal. And so there's never been something or someone put in place for children who have a learning disability. And I haven't seen it. I mean, from in the north, if our children have to go in special ed, they have to take them out of church school and put them in public school. It's always been like that. And I don't know why our churches are not accommodating. Because I have one that needs, I want her in church school, but I can't put her in church school because there's not someone in place to help her. I'm asking this question for my older daughter. She is really concerned about the singles in the church, in this conference, that there's no single program. I don't know if you have one or anything like that, but she's interested in maybe starting something up for the singles in the church. Young.
All right, two questions.
Two questions.
Okay. Let me address your first question. Our education program is geared to measure every child, what their needs are, and then trying to map out a program for each child at their learning level and then grow them. We have not, as a denomination that I know of, and I'm not an educator, so I'd have to lean to my educators who are here, been able to have a focused special education piece because the kind of curriculum and training and materials, but there is a concern for providing more along that line. That's something we'll look into as we develop. In terms of singles, this conference has started an initiative that is new with our young adult ministries. And when I talk to my young adults, how do I put that? They move away from thinking of themselves as single ministries. Because when they think of singles, their primary thing in their mind, it sounds like I'm after a husband. And so they want to feel that their involvement in ministry, their giving of their gifts, their being noticed and listened to as being a part of the rest of the church is something separate from me looking for a husband. When you say singles now in the Adventist church, you're talking about a variety. Is that kid out of college who didn't get married yet? Is the woman in her 30s who's divorced and doesn't have a husband? Is the widow in her 60s whose husband has died? All of them are single, but they're different categories and are single for different reasons. We, under Young Adult Ministries, I've asked Sister Johnston to pull together for me what she had started for Elder Edmond, and a young adult advisory that could talk to the conference administration about what the needs are so we can develop programming to meet those needs. I had a Real Talk 3 this past Thursday where I and the young adult director spoke to those over the internet. We had a great discussion. They were asking about the role of the church and those outside of the church, and we got hits all the way from people from the UK, and they were happy that we were talking and continuing what was started before I got here, a dialogue between us and young adults. So I want your daughter to be engaged, and if there's something specific in her church, she's got the kind of pastors who are sensitive to young people. Elder Stokes and Elder Edmond have a passion for that, and will develop specific ministries here. But I know if the church is to be alive, we have to gain the passion and the interest of the next generation. Because the average Adventist in North America is 55. And our church is getting older and dying if we don't reach the next generation. Plus, our young people now don't feel obligated to come to just our church. If the state conference church is closer than our church, they'll go. If the worship quality and the organizational quality is not meeting the needs, they'll go someplace else. You can't now draw a generation in if you don't have a good, strong children's program, a decent lower Sabbath school program, some kind of social programs. And I've met young people that will come to my church to preach. They still like the preaching, but to go to somebody else's church for social activities, go to somebody else's church for other things, and it's like shopping. I'll take a little here, a little here, a little here, and the kind of institutional loyalty and single church loyalty we don't have anymore. So we have to be relevant to those needs, engage them, and in some cases, young people, singles, are not engaged because they're made to feel there's something wrong with you if you ain't married yet. You're 27, dear, and you don't have anybody? We're going to pray for you. You got your PhD, dear, and you're 32, and you are not married yet? Are you gay? And they, after a while, they don't feel connected, because to be married is the gold, versus to be saved is the gold. So we have to help them believe that if God has not given them the right person yet, we talk about our better half. Well, your better half is Jesus. So you can be a whole person, happy person, productive person without being married if you have the Lord. And we have to build a climate in our churches of that peace. I'll take 2 more questions. It's a full camp meeting. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As long as I'm your president, we're going to keep on having camp meeting like we've had. I've asked, the theme for camp meeting is we would see Jesus. We're going to have our normal morning, afternoon, and evening prayers, preaching services, but I've added a couple things. I have a real passion that we as a people are losing a sense of what it means to be saved by faith and what this whole issue of righteousness by faith. This idea that you have to work yourself to be saved versus receiving the salvation from Christ. So I've asked Elder Ty Gibson, who is probably one of the most outstanding teachers and preachers of righteousness by faith in our denomination, for that evening section. Pastor Gibson will preach Sunday through Wednesday. We've had seminars during the week, but at the end of the weekends, most people have to go back because they got jobs. They can't stay for all the camp meetings. And then we have several seminars with 2 people here, 6 people there, 5 people there. I've asked some of my main presenters to do a plenary where they will then preach in the evenings, and during those seminar periods, take some time and deal with the subjects that they preached about. So Ty's going to, on Monday morning and Monday afternoon, and I might make it more now, but at least that Monday, we'll teach and preach about how the Adventists got where we are. We started off focused, right? We moved away from it, became legalistic. We're trying to move back to where we're supposed to be and make Christ center again. He'll talk about that piece and what's it look like in a 21st century piece. The other piece that I have a passion about and is concerned about is the misuse of the spirit of prophecy. I am upset that our enemies are defining the spirit of prophecy. So our young people run away from the spirit of prophecy because they hear all kinds of crazy stuff that's not right. And when you dial in Ellen White in the internet, all the junk comes up. And so since our young people believe media is truth and social stuff is truth, that it comes over there, it must be truth. And that's their source of truth. They're getting twisted pieces. And then because of the growing, how to put that, the easiest way I can say that is that there's been an attempt to make Adventism more sellable, and so there's a liberal piece. And in reaction to what people see as contemporary Adventism, there's been a movement back to more conservative, but way past that, to be almost super conservative and down to being crazy. So those who take little pieces and beat people over the head with Ellen White. Any of us who've read the Spirit of Prophecy through the years see a tremendous theme of love, a tremendous theme of mission in the writings of Ellen White. And since we're living in the end, God has already written a script to say, if we are to survive end times, here's what you need to know. Here's how the devil's coming. Here's how to counteract it. Here's how your health should be. Here's how to raise your children. Here's how our schools should be. Here's how to reach our cities. God gave us that blueprint 150 years ago. And the devil can get us not to look at it and turn away from it. The very answers we need for these times are not in the preacher. It's in the Word. And I remember when you used to study the Bible for yourself. And you used to have all that for yourself. Now very few of us, the next generation doesn't. So I've asked Dr. Newborn, who was our Spirit of Prophecy person, I'm going to ask Judd Lake from Southern to come in and do a presentation on Tuesday, a full day, dealing with the issues of defending Ellen White on one side and the proper use. Third area I was concerned about is an area that my sisters were implying. Our young adults are leaving the church. We're losing like half of our young adults between 18 and 25. There's several studies out why they're leaving and what's happening. I'm asking our youth, young adult leaders, and our team to come in and bring people that will address why our young people are doing it, what kind of strategies we need to talk about to bring them back to church. The third area is education. I believe every child should be taught of the Lord, whether there's a F.H. Jenkins near them or not. Now, our schools, where they are, need to be strengthened and grow. I think we got 10 schools. When they started raising, you do know, black Adventist education started in South Central Conference. Edgar White started that in Mississippi. We had 26 schools in Mississippi at one time. I know, let me go there. If the church had done what the Lord had said for it to do when freedmen came and slavery was ended during Reconstruction, we'd be the most connected people to the black people of America as a church. But we missed the opportunity. Technology that we have now, it's possible to upload from any location, connect to many educational sources, and our children get an education wherever they are. I'd like to see eventually a network, a combination, working with Oakland University, working with our set schools, to have a system that wherever a child is, they can receive the benefit of a Christian education. Jews and Muslims, Islam believers, regardless of what other school they have, they go to their church and their temples afterwards and get a foundation that keeps their culture rich. We have to do something similar so our children can remain Adventists. And when I say Adventist, I'm not talking about external dress. I'm talking about an Adventist as a person whose core focus is the second coming of Christ and preparing their life and all their priorities so when Jesus breaks over Nashville, they can go home. It makes all their choices possible because they're measuring the eternal as priority and the temporal must step aside. That's not something that just falls out the air. That's something we have to teach and train our young people. As a conference and as a part of North American Division, our focus will be reaching the saints, reaching the people in South Central with the unique Christ-centered message of the Adventist Church to bring them hope and wholeness. What that looks like, we aiming our ministries at what I call receptive communities. We have in the past aimed at and focused on Christians and other faiths that we've turned from Methodist to Baptist to Adventist. That pool that we've been fishing out of in America is down to about 20 million. It's shrinking. There's a growing number of people outside that pool who've been touched by religion at one time and are completely turned off. We call them the nuns. They're the fastest growing group in the country. We want to reach that group because they know something about the Bible. Well, if we have relationships, we can reach them. What we're finding is our paradigm was, I go out and give you a belief system. You already have the Bible as a reference. I teach you that what you believe was not all of what was right. And once I convince you that I have the rest, you join me. In a pluralistic world, they say you believe what you want to believe. But I believe what I want to believe. So don't bring me a belief because I don't believe in any absolute truth anymore. So that approach is not effective because a person who doesn't have your Bible as their reference doesn't want to hear you. They're not going to take your flyers. They're not worried about your religion. They don't need your religion and your God. What we're finding about those people, they are committed to causes. Social justice, fighting against the kind of prostitution and selling women into slavery here in America, and those kind of issues. And if a church is really engaged in the community to meet relevant issues, they'll join your cause. If they join your cause, they will be a part of your community. They don't want to join your church. They'll join your cause, and if you're a part of the cause, they'll be a part of your group. And then they'll wonder what drives your cause, what makes your community so connected. And when you say it's because of my love of God and what he teaches, is why I went out here to deal. So if we want to reach people, we have to join the causes and the things in our community to make a difference. I want to see us reach those communities, and we're doing it in spotted places in terms of compassionate ministries, the kind of stuff that your pastors are doing here, where we go out to the community. But we have to go out to the community more than just giving tracts or feeding every now and then. We have to go out to the community to say we stay out there. We are a part of that. I came to South Central in 71. That makes me old. But this church was alive and well and a strong congregation for almost 30 years when I came here. And I've been around for 40 years, so y'all old. My church, First Church, started in 1943. Oakwood is on its 120th year this year. So we've been in communities long enough to be major players in all the communities that we are part of. And we're not. Because we've spent more time internally than externally. I want to see that turn around. The other key, beside what we call transformative evangelism, really changing people's lives, is what you mentioned. Really working on upgrading the quality of leadership in our churches. I'm not just talking about pastors. I'm going to talk about training members to be engaged in mission. Up till now, I could never give a Bible study. Don't do anything outside the church. Don't hold a church office. If I come to church, pay my tithe and offering, be nice, I'm a member in good and regular standing. If I've never led a person to Christ, never baptized anybody, never affected, I'm a member in good and regular standing. But my Bible says God calls us to be disciples. The Lord's going to measure you by a different standard than we measure each other. And you really have not known the joy of Jesus until God has used your life to change somebody else's life. When we pastors dip somebody that we worked on and watch them grow up in Jesus, we get addicted. We go, ho, 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 let's do that again. I've done many things. God has blessed my ministry. But there's nothing more joyful to me than seeing people come to Christ. And now that I'm old, I've baptized young people who now come with heavy beards, Edmund, and heavy voices. Hello, Pastor Jones. You remember me, don't you? I used to try to play it off. How you doing, son? And I asked my wife, who is that? But now that I watch them grown, still in the church with their kids, and I'm saying, God, help me make a difference. That's something all of you need to experience. That's the other side of your personal ministry development that you're lacking. If we stay here in this church and don't do something for somebody else, we will spiritually be dead, even with great preachers. So we're going to work on developing our leaders in a more effective way. Finally, is engaging our members, challenging them, especially our young people. I had a young person, she told her dad the reason that she's not coming to her church anymore is because they don't want her. And I asked her what he was talking about. She's in her corporation. She's about 30-something years old. She's over $30+ million controlling that corporation's budget. But she thought she could work with the treasury in her church, whose annual tithe is $12,000 a year. They told her she couldn't. She was too young. And she was saying, I can handle $32 million for the world. I can't handle $12,000 for my church because I'm too young. I saw a pastor's child who's a lawyer, and she left the church, came back to the church, and left the church again. I said, why'd you leave? I had good ideas, Pastor Jones, for reaching the community. They didn't want to listen. They wanted me to sit down, pay my money, and be quiet. They wanted my finance. They didn't want me. If they don't want me, they don't want my money. Because she didn't see her church making a difference. If we don't engage the members, engage our young people, not only will we lose them, we will not be doing the mission God has called. Our focus before was from friendship, to fellowship, to membership, to discipleship. Let me pull us through that piece. I want to add one more ship on that. Mission. The North American Division is now partnering with various conferences to make the mission-driven conference. They're using pilot conferences. I asked them to make this conference a pilot. I said, everything you got that's going to be good. We want a part of that. If we're going to grow, we have to begin planting churches again. But planting churches, the way we plant churches, is expensive. To plant a church that has a facility, that has enough sanctuary, that has enough fellowship hall, that has enough offices, that has enough land to be a ministry piece that can compete, it's $1 million. So if I have to wait till I have $1 million to plant major facilities because of brick and mortar, we'll never get it done. But if a church is a community of believers who have been trained for mission, then I can plant groups of believers all over. And they in small group kind of ministries and outreach ministries that are both focused can be planted all through the conference with cells and groups that are connected both by group leadership and by technology. This gospel of the kingdom in South Central must be preached to all the world or it won't end. And with Trump's foolishness, that every day something else happens and he ain't been there a month, I'm ready for it to end. But God will not let it finish until we finish the work. And I have no sense that God is waiting on me to do it. If I don't do it, he'll find somebody. If we don't do it, he'll find somebody. You remember the disciples? They were Jesus, and this guy over there is healing and whatnot. And the disciple says, he ain't a part of us. What are we going to do about that? And then Jesus said, if he's not against us, he's for us. Well, if we don't be about our Father's business, God's going to find somebody to be about his business, because all the people are his children. God is not an Adventist God. He has people everywhere. And what we've seen, what we've been told, his sheep will hear his voice. And when God speaks clearly, they're going to come out the Catholic Church. They're going to come out the Baptist Church. They're going to come out the pagan church. They're going to come out of spiritualism. They're going to come all the way and stand. And I'm determined, ain't nobody going to take my crown. I've not been in the Adventist church since I was 14, preaching since I was 20, to get to the end, and somebody else says, excuse me, give me that Jones crown. And I don't plan to be outside the four walls at the second resurrection, seeing you wave at me. Hi, Pastor Jones. Oh, Pastor Jones, you're on the wrong side of the wall. You're supposed to be in here with Pastor Stokes and Pastor Edmund. How'd you get out there? And I don't want you saying, see, you baptized me, Pastor Jones, but, oh, you can't go to heaven with me. Ooh, Pastor Jones. When they turn on the gas, you're going to be gone. No. If I was going to go to hell, I would never start at the church. God is moving greatly. And we're going to see an outpouring of the Holy Spirit like Hillcrest has never seen before. So buckle down. Get yourself together. Whatever you are assigned to do, do with all your heart. And say, Lord, send me. I'm 80 years old, but send me. I'm 18, but send me. I'm half blind, but send me. I got arthritis, but send me, Lord. I want a piece of the pie. You know, I watched the basketball, and I noticed when my Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship, not everybody was on the court, but everybody on the team got a ring. Everybody can't do the same thing. But if you end up on God's side, doing what he asked you to do, you'll get a crown. Thank you. Pray for us. Encourage us. Work with our pastors. This is a pioneer foundation church in this conference. I need you to set the standard for all the ones that come behind you. God bless you.
Thank you, Elder Jones. Thank you for spending the day with us. Praying God's blessings upon you and your team as you shape the vision for South Central 2017 and beyond. God bless you. Thank you, Hillcrest, for hanging by this evening. I'm going to invite us to stand together.